The envelope was thick. That's the first thing I noticed when I pulled it from my mailbox on a random Tuesday in January 2019. Heavy cream-colored paper with a return address that made my hands shake. Stanford University, Office of Undergraduate Admission. I stood in the parking lot of my apartment complex in San Jose, California, cars passing by, people going about their ordinary lives while I held what might be the most important piece of mail I'd ever received. I'd applied to Stanford's transfer program 4 months earlier, a Hail Mary shot, the kind of application you submit knowing the odds are impossible but needing to try anyway. Stanford accepts roughly 1,500 transfer students per year out of over 7,000 applicants, a 20% acceptance rate. And that's if you're coming from a 4-year university with perfect grades and incredible extracurriculars. I was coming from community college. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The first word I saw was congratulations. I read it 3 times before my brain accepted what my eyes were seeing. I'd been accepted to Stanford University, full scholarship, starting in the fall semester. They wanted me. The community college student, the kid who couldn't afford a 4-year school, the one my brother had mocked 6 months earlier at my associate's degree graduation. Community college is for losers who couldn't get into real schools, Trevor had said, loud enough for half the gymnasium to hear. But hey, at least you got a participation trophy degree. That's something, right? I'd stood there in my cap and gown, holding my associate's degree in computer science, surrounded by my proud community college professors and classmates, and felt my accomplishment shrivel under my brother's contempt. Now, 6 months later, I was holding a Stanford acceptance letter. I pulled out my phone and called the one person who'd believed in me from the beginning, my community college counselor, Mrs. Patricia Gonzalez. "Mrs. G," I said, my voice breaking, "I got in, Stanford, I got in." She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. In the background, I heard her yelling to the other counselors, "Michael got into Stanford, our Michael! I told you all he would!" That's when I started crying in the parking lot, still holding the envelope, finally letting myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't a loser after all. This is the story of how I learned that your starting point doesn't determine your destination, and how the people who underestimate you often reveal more about their own limitations than yours. I grew up in San Jose, the heart of Silicon Valley, which is ironic because my family had nothing to do with tech wealth. We lived in the part of the city that tourists don't see, the neighborhoods where service workers, immigrants, and working-class families keep the engine of innovation running without ever sharing in its prosperity. My parents, Rosa and David Martinez, both worked multiple jobs. Mom cleaned houses for tech executives in Los Altos Hills. Dad did landscaping for the same people. They'd immigrated from Mexico in the early 90s, worked brutally hard, and built a life that was stable if not comfortable. My brother Trevor was born in 1995, 2 years before me. From early childhood, he was the star, handsome, athletic, charismatic, the kind of kid who could charm teachers, make friends instantly, and navigate social situations with an ease I never possessed. I was the awkward one, skinny, quiet, more interested in computers than people. While Trevor played youth soccer and baseball, I taught myself to code using free resources at the public library. While he had friends over constantly, I spent weekends taking apart old computers and figuring out how they worked. My parents loved us both, but they understood Trevor in a way they never quite understood me. Trevor's world made sense to them: sports, friends, social success. My world of programming and technology was foreign, concerning even. "Why do you spend so much time on that computer?" Mom would ask, worry creasing her forehead. "You should be outside with friends, playing soccer like your brother." "I like computers," I'd say, which never seemed like an adequate answer to her. Trevor excelled in high school. Good grades without much effort, star player on the soccer team, homecoming court, the works. He got recruited by several UC schools and chose UC Santa Barbara, a good school. Great campus, perfect for someone who valued social life as much as academics. My parents were so proud. We had a huge graduation party for him. Extended family came from all over California and Mexico. There was a mariachi band, a cake from his favorite bakery, hundreds of dollars spent celebrating Trevor's achievement. When my turn came 2 years later, things were different. I'd worked hard in high school 4.0 GPA, president of the coding club, built websites for local businesses to make money. But my SAT scores, while good, weren't exceptional. My extracurriculars were impressive to me, but looked weak on paper compared to student body presidents and varsity athletes. I applied to 15 schools, all the UCs, some Cal States, a few private universities. Rejection after rejection came back. UCLA rejected. UC Berkeley rejected. USC rejected. Even UC Santa Cruz waitlisted me. The only acceptances I got were from schools my family couldn't afford. Private universities that offered some financial aid but still required $15,000, $20,000 per year that we didn't have. My parents' income was too high for maximum aid but too low to actually pay tuition. I was devastated. I'd worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and it wasn't enough. That's when my high school counselor, Mr. Chen, suggested community college. "Listen, Michael," he said gently, "I know it's not what you dreamed of, but Foothill College has an excellent computer science program. You can do 2 years there, maintain a high GPA, and transfer to a top UC or even Stanford. The transfer pathway is legitimate. Some of the smartest students I've known went that route." "Community college?" I said, unable to hide my disappointment. "Isn't that for people who... I don't know. For people who can't afford the traditional path? For people who need a second chance? For people who are smart enough to take advantage of a system that lets them get the same degree for a fraction of the cost?" Mr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "There's no shame in community college, Michael. The shame is in letting pride prevent you from achieving your goals." He was right, but it still hurt. Trevor's reaction when I told the family was worse. "Community college?" He laughed, not even trying to hide his amusement. "Dude, that's like the 13th grade. That's where burnouts and idiots go when they can't get into real schools." "Trevor," my mother said weakly, but she didn't actually defend me. "I'm just saying it's embarrassing. My brother's going to community college while I'm at UCSB. What am I supposed to tell people?" "You could tell them the truth," I said quietly, "that I'm taking a smart financial path to eventually transfer to a better school than you got into." "Good luck with that." Trevor smirked. "Community college kids don't transfer to top schools. They transfer to, like, Cal State East Bay or something. You're basically giving up on having a real college experience." My father, who usually stayed out of these conflicts, spoke up. "Your brother is doing what he needs to do. We support both of you." But I could see the disappointment in his eyes. I was supposed to be the smart one, and somehow I'd ended up at community college while Trevor was at a UC. That summer before starting at Foothill College was one of the lowest points of my life. I worked full-time at Best Buy, saved every penny, and watched my high school friends post photos from UC orientations and dorm move-ins. I felt like I'd failed before my life had even started. Foothill College changed everything, though it took me a while to see it. The campus was small, the buildings were dated, and there was no dorm life or football team or any of the traditional college experiences Trevor loved to brag about. But the professors? They were incredible. My first computer science professor, Dr. James Liu, had worked at Sun Microsystems and Oracle before deciding he preferred teaching. He saw something in me during the first week. "You have an intuitive understanding of systems thinking," he told me after class one day. "That's rare. Most students can memorize syntax and follow tutorials. You understand why code works the way it does. Don't waste that talent." For the first time in months, I felt seen. I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that probably wasn't healthy. While Trevor posted Instagram stories of UCSB parties and beach days, I was in the computer lab until midnight, building projects, learning new programming languages, creating a portfolio that would make transfer applications impossible to ignore. Mrs. Gonzalez, my counselor, became my advocate and mentor. She'd worked in community college counseling for 20 years and had seen hundreds of students transfer to top universities. The secret, she told me during one of our many meetings, is that community college is actually an advantage if you play it right. You get small class sizes, professors who actually know your name, and the opportunity to prove yourself without the grade deflation and competition of a major university. A 4.0 at community college with strong extracurriculars and compelling essays can beat a 3.5 from a UC. Do people really transfer to schools like Stanford? I asked. They do. It's rare, but it happens. You need perfect grades, demonstrated leadership, unique perspective, and a story that shows why you specifically deserve that opportunity. She looked at me intently. You have all of that, Michael. You just need to believe it. I started building my case. Perfect 4.0 GPA, not a single A- in 4 semesters. President of the Coding Club. Started a free computer literacy program for senior citizens at the local community center. Built websites pro bono for nonprofits. Got a paid internship at a startup in Mountain View. Published 2 research papers with Dr. Liu on machine learning applications. But more than the resume building, community college taught me something crucial. My worth wasn't determined by where I started. My classmates came from everywhere. Recent high school grads like me. People in their 30s going back to school. Immigrants learning English while getting degrees. Veterans using GI benefits. Single parents grinding through night classes. Every single one had a story, a reason, a dream. Nobody at community college was a loser. They were fighters. During Thanksgiving break of my second year, Trevor came home from UCSB. He'd been there for 2 years, and from what I could gather through his selective social media posts, things weren't going well. His grades had slipped. He'd been suspended from the soccer team for a semester for academic issues, but he maintained the facade of having the time of his life. "How's 13th grade treating you?" he asked me at Thanksgiving dinner, that familiar smirk on his face. "It's treating me fine," I said evenly. "How's your GPA treating you?" His face darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I heard you're on academic probation, that you might not be able to stay at UCSB if you don't pull your grades up." "Who told you that?" He looked at our parents accusingly. "Nobody told me. Your girlfriend posted about it on Twitter. Something about hoping you could figure out your school situation so you didn't have to transfer schools." The table went silent. Apparently, Trevor hadn't told our parents he was struggling. "That's none of your business," Trevor said. "You're right. Just like my choice to go to community college was none of your business, but you made it your business to mock me for it at every opportunity. So maybe don't be surprised when people notice you're not doing as great as you pretend." I'd never stood up to Trevor like that before. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. My mother intervened, changing the subject, but something had shifted. Trevor's golden boy image had cracks in it, and everyone could see them now. In January of my second year, Mrs. Gonzalez called me into her office with unusual urgency. "Okay," she said, pulling out a folder thick with papers. "We're doing this. You're applying to transfer for next fall. UC Berkeley, UCLA, and Stanford." "Stanford?" I laughed nervously. "Mrs. G, that's not realistic." "Why not? You have a 4.0. Your internship supervisor wrote you a recommendation letter that made me cry. Dr. Liu's letter calls you the most talented student he's taught in 15 years. Your personal statement about using your community college experience to stay connected to your community while pursuing tech innovation is compelling and unique. But I'm from community college. So what? Stanford takes transfer students. They want diverse perspectives. They want students who've overcome obstacles. They want people who've proven they can succeed in challenging environments." She pushed the application materials toward me. "You belong there as much as anyone, more than most. Now stop doubting yourself and fill out these applications." I applied. Spent weeks on the essays, agonizing over every word, trying to explain why a kid from community college deserved a spot at one of the world's best universities. The thesis of my personal statement was simple. I'd learned more about innovation, resilience, and real-world problem-solving at community college than I ever would have at a traditional university. I'd learned it from classmates who balanced school with full-time jobs and children, from professors who chose teaching over corporate salaries because they believed in education, from my own experience of having every assumption about education and success challenged and rebuilt. I submitted the applications in November and tried not to think about them for the next 3 months. In May, I graduated from Foothill College with my associate's degree. The ceremony was small, held in the gymnasium, nothing like the grand affairs at UC or Stanford, but it was meaningful. Dr. Liu spoke at the ceremony. He talked about how community college students were often society's most underestimated resource people, with talent, drive, and determination, who just needed an opportunity to prove themselves. When my name was called and I walked across that stage to receive my associate's degree in computer science, I felt proud. I'd earned a 4.0. I'd built real skills. I'd created opportunities where none existed. And then Trevor ruined it. He'd come to the ceremony along with my parents. Afterward, as we took photos outside the gymnasium, Trevor said loudly enough for my professors and classmates to hear, "Well, you did it. You graduated from community college. I guess that's an achievement, right? I mean, community college is for losers who couldn't get into real schools, but hey, at least you got a participation trophy degree. That's something." The people around us went quiet. I saw Dr. Liu's expression darken. Mrs. Gonzalez looked like she wanted to say something but didn't want to cause a scene. I felt my accomplishment shrivel, felt 2 years of hard work dismissed with a single cruel joke, felt the familiar shame of not being good enough. My mother said, "Trevor, that's not nice." "I'm just kidding around," Trevor said, but he wasn't. He was threatened by my success, even my small success, and needed to diminish it. I didn't say anything. I took my photos, thanked my professors, and went home feeling hollow. That should have been the end of it. Trevor went back to UCSB. He'd managed to get off academic probation, and I prepared for my final summer before transfer decisions came in. I'd been accepted to UC Santa Cruz and UC Davis good schools, respectable outcomes. UCLA and Berkeley had waitlisted me, which was disappointing but not surprising. And then, on that Tuesday in January, the Stanford letter arrived. I called Mrs. Gonzalez first, then Dr. Liu, then my parents. "Mihijo!" My mother screamed so loud I thought she might pass out. "Stanford! Do you know what this means? Stanford!" My father got on the phone, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you, mijo. So proud." "Should we tell Trevor?" my mother asked. I hesitated. "Not yet. Let me process this first." But of course, she told him immediately, and Trevor's response was predictable. He called me that night. "Stanford? Seriously? How did you manage that?" "I earned it." "Come on. They probably have some quota for community college students, diversity admissions or whatever. That's the only way someone from Foothill gets into Stanford." "Actually," I said, feeling anger rise in my chest for the first time, "I got in because I had a perfect GPA, multiple research publications, strong recommendations from professors who actually knew me, and a compelling personal narrative about using community college as a launching pad for first-generation college students in tech." "Whatever helps you sleep at night," Trevor said. "Just remember that some of us got into real schools through the front door, not through some transfer student quota system." "Trevor, you're at UC Santa Barbara on academic probation." "I'm going to Stanford on a full scholarship. There's no version of reality where you get to look down on me anymore." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt lighter than I had in years. Word spread quickly in my family and community. Suddenly, I was the success story, the kid who'd started at community college and made it to Stanford. Mrs. Gonzalez asked if she could use my story in counseling sessions with future students. Dr. Liu featured me in a departmental newsletter. And Trevor? Trevor got quiet. Stopped making jokes about community college. Stopped comparing our achievements. Stopped calling as often. My mother told me later that he'd said to her, "I don't understand how Michael did it. He's not smarter than me. He just works harder, I guess. Cares more. I don't know." That was the closest Trevor ever came to acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, he'd underestimated me. Starting at Stanford in the fall of 2019 was surreal. The campus was beautiful, the students were brilliant, and I was terrified I wouldn't belong. But community college had prepared me in ways I didn't expect. I knew how to manage my time because I'd balanced full-time work with school. I knew how to build relationships with professors because I'd learned in small classes where connection mattered. I knew how to work independently because I'd spent 2 years largely on my own, without the built-in support systems of traditional university life. Most importantly, I knew my worth wasn't determined by other people's perceptions. I'd been told I was a loser for going to community college. I'd been told transfer students were second-class citizens. I'd been told I didn't belong at Stanford. And yet, here I was, not despite community college because of it. My first semester, I took Computer Science 107, a notoriously difficult systems programming course. The other students came from prestigious high schools and universities. Many had been coding since elementary school. Some had already launched startups or published research. I held my own, more than held my own. I excelled. When the professor asked who'd be interested in undergraduate research positions, I raised my hand and mentioned my work at Foothill with Dr. Liu on machine learning applications. After class, the professor, Dr. Cynthia Martinez, asked me to stay back. "You're a transfer student, right? From community college?" "Yes, ma'am." "I love transfer students," she said, smiling. "They're usually my best researchers. They're more mature, more motivated, and they don't take the opportunity for granted. Are you interested in working in my lab?" I joined her research group that semester, started working on a project involving natural language processing, co-authored a paper that eventually got published in a top-tier conference, got offered a summer internship at Google. Everything I'd been told would hold me back starting at community college, taking the easy path, being a transfer student, became my greatest strength. During winter break of my first year at Stanford, I went home to San Jose. My family was hosting a Christmas party, extended relatives, family friends, the usual crowd. Trevor was there, home from UCSB for the holidays. He'd graduated the previous spring with a degree in economics and was working in sales at a tech company in San Diego. It was a decent job, nothing spectacular, but he seemed reasonably happy. The relatives, of course, wanted to hear about Stanford. "Tell us everything, Michael. What's it like? Have you met anyone famous? Are you going to work at Google or Apple when you graduate?" I tried to downplay it, uncomfortable with the attention, but my mother, beaming with pride, kept pulling people over to hear my stories. At some point, Trevor and I ended up alone in the kitchen. "So you're really doing the Stanford thing," he said, not quite a question. "Yeah, it's incredible. Hard, but incredible." "I'm happy for you," he said, and he sounded like he meant it. "I'm sorry for how I treated you when you were at community college. I was an asshole." "You were." "I think I was jealous, actually. Even then. You always worked harder than me. Cared more. I knew that, and it bothered me. So I made fun of you to feel better about myself." He looked at his beer. Pretty immature, in retrospect. "Pretty immature at the time, too," I said, but I smiled to soften it. "Can I ask you something? How did you do it? How did you go from community college to Stanford? Like, what was the actual path?" I explained it to him. The perfect grades, the research, the relationships with professors, the way I'd turned community college from a limitation into an asset, the way Mrs. Gonzalez had advocated for me, the way Dr. Liu had believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. "So it wasn't luck," Trevor said. "It was strategy and work ethic and taking advantage of opportunities everyone else overlooked." "Yeah, basically." I wish I'd done that. UCSB was fun, but I coasted, partied too much, didn't take advantage of the opportunities I had, and now I'm in a job I don't love with student loan debt, wondering what I'm supposed to do with my life. He looked at me. "You figured it out. At community college. How'd you get so smart?" I had to be. I didn't have the luxury of coasting. That conversation with Trevor was a turning point in our relationship. It wasn't instant healing, we still had years of baggage to work through, but it was honest in a way we'd never been with each other before. Over the next 2 years at Stanford, I thrived. Double majored in computer science and engineering, maintained a 3.9 GPA, got another research paper published, did internships at Google and Facebook, got job offers from both, plus Microsoft and a few well-funded startups, before I even graduated. When graduation came in June 2021, delayed and modified due to COVID-19, my entire family came, including Trevor. The ceremony was different from my community college graduation. Stanford Stadium, thousands of graduates, famous speakers, the works. When they called my name and I walked across that stage to receive my bachelor's degree in computer science from Stanford University, summa cum laude, I saw my parents crying in the stands. But the person who surprised me was Trevor. He was crying too. Afterward, as we took photos in front of the Stanford gates, Trevor pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, little brother. I know I didn't say it before when you graduated from Foothill, when you got accepted here, any of the times I should have. But I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry I ever made you feel like community college made you a loser. You're the furthest thing from a loser. You're the smartest, most determined person I know." Thanks, Trevor. That means a lot. For the record, Stanford called you because you deserved it. Not because of quotas or luck or anything else. You earned this. All of it. It was the validation I'd been waiting years to hear from him. And finally, I didn't need it anymore. I knew my worth regardless of his opinion. But it still felt good to hear. I took a job at Google as a software engineer with a starting salary of $180,000 plus stock options. Bought a small condo in Mountain View. Started paying down my parents' mortgage. They'd taken out a second mortgage to help Trevor with UCSB expenses, and I wanted to help. Mrs. Gonzalez invited me back to Foothill to speak to current students about the transfer pathway. I talked about how community college wasn't a backup plan. It was a strategic choice. How the students who started there weren't losers. They were innovators finding alternative routes to their goals. "Some of you will transfer to UCs," I told a room of community college students. "Some to Stanford or MIT or Harvard. Some will join the workforce directly. But all of you have something in common. You're here because you're smart enough to take the path that works for you, not the path society says you should take. That's not being a loser. That's being a pioneer." The lessons I learned from my journey continue to shape my life. First, your starting point doesn't determine your destination. Where you begin matters far less than how hard you work and how strategic you are with opportunities. Second, the people who underestimate you are revealing their own limitations, not yours. Trevor's contempt for community college said everything about his insecurity and nothing about my potential. Third, the traditional path isn't the only path. Sometimes the scenic route teaches you more, builds more character, and prepares you better for success than the highway everyone else takes. Fourth, small schools and overlooked opportunities often hide the best mentors and the most valuable experiences. Mrs. Gonzalez and Dr. Liu changed my life in ways that would have been impossible at a large university, where I was one of thousands. And finally, success is the best response to people who doubt you. Not petty success that's only about proving them wrong, but genuine success that comes from proving yourself right, from believing in your own potential, even when nobody else does. I'm 26 now, working at Google, recently promoted to senior engineer. I volunteer with community college programs that help students navigate the transfer process. I mentor first-generation college students. I donate to Foothill's computer science department in Dr. Liu's name. And when people ask me where I went to school, I don't lead with Stanford. I say, I started at Foothill Community College and transferred to Stanford. Because I'm not ashamed of where I started. I'm proud of it. Community college gave me everything I needed to succeed. Excellent education, supportive mentors, resilience, and the understanding that intelligence and worth aren't determined by institutional prestige. Trevor and I are close now, closer than we've ever been. He left his sales job and went back to school community college, actually to study nursing. It's his second bachelor's degree, earned at the same institution I started at, and he loves it. I get it now, he told me recently, why you thrived at Foothill. The professors actually care. The classes are small. You're not just a number. I wish I'd started here instead of UCSB. I would have saved money and probably learned more. It's not too late, I said. You're learning that now. Yeah, better late than never. He smiled. Hey, remember when I said community college was for losers? I remember. I was such an idiot. You were, but you learned. That's what matters. The real validation came not from Trevor's apology or Stanford's acceptance letter or Google's job offer, but from the moment I stopped needing external validation at all. The moment I understood deep in my bones that I was enough, regardless of where I started or who believed in me. Community college didn't make me a loser. It made me a fighter. It made me resourceful. It made me humble enough to accept help and confident enough to seize opportunities. And when Stanford called that next semester, they weren't calling a community college student who'd lucked into an acceptance. They were calling a young man who'd maximized every opportunity, overcome every obstacle, and proven that excellence has nothing to do with prestige and everything to do with persistence. Trevor said community college was for losers at my graduation. Stanford disagreed, and more importantly, so did I.